Hey, everybody. I'm Jane.
And I'm Sarah.
And you're listening to the Medium Curious Podcast, the show that insists that even in dark times, we can find joy. You just have to know where to look.
Yeah. And you can be that light in the dark.
That's right.
Speaking of light, we have Amanda Elemental with us today, and she's an evidential medium, a Reiki Master, and a DJ alchemist.
Ooh.
She's so cool.
And while we didn't get to shake our booties, we did have a blast talking to her. So, ready?
Yes.
Here we go.
Booty shake. Hi, Amanda Elemental. Can you can you tell everybody, all of our listeners, about yourself, who you are and why you're on here, what you do in this world?
Yeah, I would love to. I'm really excited to be here. This is actually the first time that I've been on a podcast talking about mediumship before. So thank you so much for having me. And my name is Amanda Elemental. I am a medium, a Reiki Master, an intuitive, and a DJ. And I am on this podcast to talk about spirits and mediumship with y'all.
Yay.
Awesome. Mostly I want to talk about DJ, but that's just me.
Yeah, and I understand that you guys have a lot of connection to music, and you're also sober. So I think there's a lot of things that we can dive into today.
100%. Absolutely. Okay, let's start at the beginning, though. The beginning of mediumship. How did you get into mediumship? That's always super fascinating to me.
Yeah, and it's kind of an interesting story, at least I think, because it was a complete accident for me. I want to say it kind of happened, but I'm going to back up before we get to the mediumship part and just give a little bit more of a context of how I actually got onto the path, because essentially in about 2020, prior to that, I was living in Portland, Oregon. I was working in advertising, working with Nike, doing the whole thing, and essentially ended up losing my job and got the call to move back to Canada, where I am now, and ended a long-term relationship, which seemed really cut and dried at the time, and then ended up being very traumatic. And essentially, I found myself, this was probably January of 2020, right when the pandemic was happening. I found myself back in Canada, living alone for the first time, and going through what I refer to as a dark night of the soul. It was definitely a very, very low point in my life. And I came to this moment of, how did I get here and how do I make sure I'm never here again? And that presented for me as a lot of past and present trauma healing. And now that I know more about trauma and I have a mentor and have become trauma informed, I know that trauma is something that happens fast and is meant to be healed very slowly, which I did not know at the time. And my approach to trauma was, I'm going to heal this aggressively. So
that would be my vibe too.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm really going for this, you know? And so I'm in lockdown, alone in my house, just really focused on healing trauma. And essentially, I went so deep so quickly that I had what I now recognize as a spiritual awakening. So I think, my consciousness just shifted so much that I started having all of these experiences that I had absolutely no context for, having never been a spiritual person. So many synchronicities and things that were happening that I just thought that I had been locked down in my apartment alone for so long that I was just going insane. Like I had no idea what was happening. One of the ways that this presented was through premonition dreams. So I would dream something and it would happen the next day. The example that I really like to use is, I had a dream that my cousin, who I'm very close with, came to me and told me that she was pregnant. And the next day I texted her, I was like, hey, had this dream, and lately my dreams have been a little wacky and they've been coming true. So if you have any inclination that you might be pregnant, you should probably look into it. She was like, no, I'm not. It's fine. It's okay. And then a couple months later, she sent myself and my other cousins a message in a group chat. And she said, "Hey, Amanda, can you tell everyone about that dream you had about me a couple months ago?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh, you're pregnant." And she just sent a picture of an ultrasound and was like, "How, like, what the bleep? Like, how did you know?"
Oh my God. Chills, chills, chills. Wow.
Yeah. So after that, I was like, okay, there's something going on intuition wise. I've always been pretty intuitive, or like considered myself as an empath, like someone that can kind of feel and interpret what other people are experiencing. But I decided to dive deep into my intuition, started learning about my intuition. I took a class with Rory from the Medium School, who is a fantastic teacher and now also a friend, also a fantastic medium. And she does a class called the Intuitive Collective, which is a real deep dive into all things intuition. So I did 2 levels of that. She has 2 levels. And in the second level, there was a component of mediumship. And we were essentially learning about it. We're partnered with someone. And then we were tasked to just tap in and just like write down whatever stuff comes through. So I was partnered with a woman who had lost her husband recently, and she was very transparent about wanting to connect with him. So I wrote down a bunch of stuff that didn't make any sense to me. And then when I read it to her, it completely made sense to her. And she started crying and was like really like impressed. And I didn't actually think anything of it at the time. I was just like, you know, she's grieving, and was just happy to get any kind of messages. I didn't think like, oh, it's because I'm a medium, you know, I just kind of let it slide. But then I started learning Reiki. I just felt called to learn some kind of energy healing modality. And I did my Reiki level 1. And in my Reiki level 1, if you guys are familiar with Reiki, there's a process called an attunement, where the Reiki Master essentially upgrades your energetic field so that you can perform Reiki. And what I wasn't aware of at the time is if you have any underlying intuitive abilities, they all come online when you go through this energetic process. So I get attuned, and it was a very intense experience for me because I'm very energetically sensitive. So there was a moment where my Reiki Master touched my shoulders, and I was like, oh my God, I'm either going to pass out or just throw up in my lap. Like, this feels like a lot. And then there was just a wild experience. It only lasted probably 5 minutes, and I felt like I was in there for like 5 hours, just having all kinds of visions. And and then we went back into the room. It was just myself, my Reiki Master, and another woman. And we had been learning Reiki all morning, and it was time for us to just practice on each other. And I said that I would go first. And so we're just standing there, and we're doing a method called Poison scanning, where you're just kind of scanning someone's energy with your hands. And I start scanning my partner's energy. And I say to this woman, which is not a thing I would typically say, I said, I can't do Reiki right now because your father wants to speak to you. And she said, my father is dead. And I said, I know. And the best way that I can describe it is like, I was no longer in the room. I was in another dimension entirely. There were like strobe lights behind my eyes. Like everything was very dramatic. And, I could always feel and just like know things previously, but after the attunement, all of a sudden I could see things, I could hear things, I could smell things. So I'm explaining to my Reiki Master and my partner what's happening, and I'm telling her I see a man in my mind's eye, and I'm explaining his energy and what he feels like. He feels really jovial. I'm explaining what he looks like. And then I said that he's standing at the top of a staircase, and he's joking about that damn bookshelf. And the woman was like, that makes sense. My dad fell down the stairs and then hit his head on a bookshelf, and that's how he passed.
Oh my God.
And then essentially I kept going and just kept bringing forth all of this valid information that this man in my mind was telling me. And my Reiki master and this woman were just losing it. Like, did you know? Did you know you were meeting? I was like, I'm not even in the room right now. Like, I don't even know.
I'll get back to you when I get back to the room.
Yeah, I'm like, when I'm back on Earth, like, we can talk, but like just kind of staring at them deer in headlights, just like nodding along, but no idea. So that's essentially how I found out initially that I'm a medium. And then as I progressed through my Reiki levels, every time I would practice on someone, a spirit would just come through and start talking to me. And it just kept happening and happening to the point where I was like, all right, there's something here. I'm going to dive deeper into this. And then I did an 8-month-long course with Roy of the Mediumship School again. I'm technically a certified medium, which doesn't necessarily mean anything to anyone if you don't believe in this work. But I really like the idea of your mediumship teacher and people that you had to read for, like verifying and validating that you're a medium. That felt really good to me. So essentially, I came to this by way of random spiritual awakening and then accidentally talking to someone's father.
I love that. I
That's
love that
amazing.
intersection of Reiki and mediumship.
Mm-hmm.
I do kind of feel like I've heard quite a few mediums talk about being Reiki practitioners and then discovering their mediumship through that, because it is being sensitive to energy. I mean, and that's what mediumship is too. It's the perception of subtle energy. And it sounds like it's not even subtle to you. It's like, bam, knock you over the head energy.
Yeah. And I think, having had that one experience of mediumship and just kind of brushing it off, it almost had to be so dramatic for spirit to be like, by the way, like, pay attention to this. This is the thing. But I agree. Yeah. It is the perception of energy. And there is that tie with sort of the attunement. I've heard other stories of people going through this attunement process and then all of a sudden being clairvoyant and so on, et cetera. So I always like hearing the connection between Reiki as a pathway to mediumship.
Yeah, well, that was my pathway too. That's how I came online. Yeah. So, I was in a different path. It was called quantum touch, but it was, for me, I like the way you just said it, Sarah, like the subtle energies are available, but I also just felt like I was suddenly running so much more energy, right? Because that's like how we were taught is like you bring in all this energy and you hold a really high intention. And so to me, I was like, and like you're talking about in your past experience, like you've done this big up leveling, right? So you've given it's almost like, imagine a conduit, like an electrical conduit, and you've just given yourself that much more, I don't know, room in the conduit. I'm not saying it right, but you know what I'm saying? And like, and you, and this electrical cord needs buffering and it needs grounding. And it's like, you just have given yourself so much more capacity by having gone through that process. So that's what I wonder too. Like, not only is it information that aligns, like where are the subtle energies, what's happening with that, but also just like whoosh, like you have way more room in the electrical box.
Yeah, I agree. Way more room in the electrical box and more capacity to know sort of how to hold it and what to do with it and direct that energy as well.
Yeah,
I have a question for you. So when you were back in the beginning of 2020 in the dark night of the soul, how did you get from that to knowing that you wanted to do this deep dive into your intuition? I know that there was a lot of it being by yourself, but how did you, and you did it alone, like, can you speak a little bit more about that? Because that's so interesting, because there's a lot of people that are finding themselves, I think we're going to have another one of those big shifts coming too, because 2020 was definitely one of them. And I feel like we're going to be encountering this again. People who are finding themselves in that space, that dark night of the soul. Do you have any tips how to get through that to where you are now?
Wow. Yeah, that's a big question. And to be honest, like looking back on it, I can say a couple things of what got me through. I think the biggest thing for me was meeting people that are also on a spiritual path. Like I mentioned, I thought that I was just going insane that I had just spent too much time alone in my house. And now I was hearing voices and, having premonition dreams and other things. And it wasn't until I met some people who are now some of my closest friends that were further along on the path, who were basically like, hey, you're not going insane. You're just waking up and it's okay. And it's almost like finding those people that can see you, that you can speak to really openly about the experiences that you're having and have them seen and heard and understood. It wasn't until I found those people that I felt really like comfortable in what was happening. And my intuition kept telling me, like, just keep holding on, something's coming, just keep holding on. And I was like, what is it? Help me. How do I get there? But it was really finding these people in that community that changed things for me. And I think that, community is so important right now. And I've encountered so many people on this journey of working with other people, and primarily women that are also very energetically sensitive and have also gone through similar things where they had an awakening and they thought they were going crazy. And just finding those people and being able to sort of like guide them of like, no, you're not going crazy. It's okay. You're waking up. It's happening more and more. And I think it's going to continue to happen. And it's really nice to sort of be in a place where we can kind of like help guide people a little bit and help teach them. Like even, this podcast of like people that are curious about mediumship, it's just like pulling on the threads, of like what else you want to explore and how else you might be able to see reality or the world or what's taking place. And I think for me, it was definitely just finding other people. And even through like the like intuition workshop I was doing, it was like, okay, there's other people that believe in intuition and aren't going to think I'm insane when I tell them that I dream things and then it happens,
Yeah. I love that you reached out and you were given the answer. You're just waking up and it's okay. There is so much comfort in that. And I do feel like that is so very important. That is to normalize the waking up.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think this always brings to mind shamanic cultures where if people were waking up then, instead of, thinking that they were crazy, people would think that they were gifted and the other shamans would embrace them and be their mentors and they would start learning from them. Whereas in our sort of like Western culture, I kind of think that there is a fine line between being a medium and being like a schizophrenic or having mental health issues. And it can just be viewed as, oh, you're having a psychotic episode or, not necessarily getting the spiritual support that you need throughout the process.
Yep. Yeah. That's deeply true for me. I have a brother who's diagnosed schizophrenic, and as the years go by, I am, as part of why I was afraid to come online. Yeah. Because I was afraid of that line being too thin. And it is. I think you're so right. Like it's exceptionally thin and it's also really beautiful. And I think to your point, had he been born in a different culture, he would have been revered because he's a music maker and he can talk to any spirit and he can see all these realities. And he has massive capacity that just is undermined and misunderstood.
Yeah,
here.
Definitely misunderstood.
Yeah. So like in the last several years, I've been like, hold on a minute. So I have the best conversations with him. Like, what did Dad say? And then his friend just died. I was like, yeah, how's that guy doing over there? And he's like, oh yeah, he's good. He came and, like we have like conversations like you do with other mediums. And it's pretty great, actually. It's pretty nice to recognize exactly what you're saying.
Yeah. And I'm sure it's really nice for him to feel seen after having sort of like gone through that and being told that you're one thing when really you're something else.
Yeah. Yes. It's a continued unpacking, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. Well, I want to hear about your sobriety because that's really intriguing to me. When did that fun thing start?
My sobriety journey was kind of layered, I want to say. So just to back up a little bit, I started DJing when I was probably in my second year of university. So I was fairly young, and it kind of turned into something that my friends and I created this DJ night that we thought was just going to go through our college years. And then it spanned for like 12 years. Like we had this Thursday night for 12 years. And then that turned into, I have a Thursday, and then sometimes I have a weekly Friday and like a weekly Saturday. And before you know it, you're getting paid to party. It was a lot of fun. Don't get me wrong. It was a great way to misspend your youth, but it was also a gateway to dependency on alcohol, because you're essentially getting paid to party. And so that really fueled kind of like I call it an addiction, or just a dependency to alcohol. I think addiction is very much a spectrum, but it would present as, I'm DJing Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and just drinking through the whole weekend. And the journey for me, how I kind of stepped back from drinking as much as I got really into distance running. It's part of why I was out west working at Nike. I got really into running, and like really into racing and like competitive running. And, I was running with a run crew of women every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. and you can't go out Friday night, get wasted, and then like run. So I actually know a lot of people that can do this, but that's not me. I'm like way too sensitive to be able to do that. So I guess running was kind of my gateway to stepping back from drinking. And then when I moved out west, I gave up DJing and was really focused on running. And when I would be training for a big race or a marathon, like I would just stop drinking. So eventually I was really taking a step back, but it was still a pretty big part of my life. And I think it was 2018, I did a dry January, that thing that everyone does when after the holidays, where they're like, they've been drinking too much, so they're just going to take a break for January and have a reset. I did a dry January, and in that month, my uncle passed away from complications of alcoholism. And by the time January ended, I was like, I don't know why I would start drinking again. I can't justify it. And I can be very much an all or nothing person. So I knew that if I just would only drink on the weekends, or, those boundaries that people try to set for themselves, I knew that I wouldn't be able to follow them. So for me, it was just like cold turkey, just gave up drinking.
Yeah. I mean, it's so interesting. I spent pretty much my whole 20s bartending. So,
so you know,
so I definitely understand that. And I think for me, I had to give up drinking completely 100%, initially because of spirit, because I can't connect. I can't feel energy the way I want to when I'm drinking, but it also, I didn't want it taking up any space in my head anymore.
Yeah.
I didn't want that, like, okay, I can have one drink here, or I'm going to save my drink for tomorrow, and I got to make sure I've got an excuse so I don't have a second, like it just took up too much space for me. So I do really, if anybody asks me like, why'd you quit drinking? I was like, I could give you a book that only non-drinkers would want to read.
Yeah, exactly.
Of the reasons why I've quit drinking, but I just love hearing every person's story.
Yeah. And it can be it is a really hard thing to do and to walk back from, especially when you're used to existing in those spaces or those industries. Or, at the time, I remember I was working for an advertising agency that I jokingly referred to as a frat house, because it was like everyone just drank very, very heavily. And it was just the culture of the place. And being the person that suddenly doesn't drink anymore was like, okay, I'm losing my coworkers type of vibe, because I just wasn't fun anymore.
Yeah.
That's hard. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's brave. But the good news is, well, as Sarah discovered on New Year's Eve, you can still vibe pretty hard with drinkers. You can kind of actually just join them.
So on New Year's Eve, I went to a party, was hanging out with the drinkers who I love and adore with every fiber of my being. And I woke up so hungover the next day, even though I hadn't had a drop to drink. I was way hungover than any of them. It wasn't fair.
Oh my gosh. Was it like an energy hangover?
It was totally, because when I was at the party, I was totally wasted, even though I hadn't consumed any alcohol.
Yeah.
And then the next day I was hungover. I was like, okay, well, okay, fine.
Yeah. I resonate with that from like going to festivals, where sometimes there's, illicit substances being used, and I'll walk by someone and just be like, whoa, like, now I'm high. Like, this is wild.
Yeah.
It's just like a contact high, you don't even need to ingest anything anymore when you're so sensitive. But it's also something that you need to take into account, because otherwise you're going to end up hungover on New Year's Day.
It's like, this is so familiar. This feels so familiar, this hangover.
Yeah, you're like, I don't do this anymore. This is why I stopped.
So you can join them, but just don't go all the way to there. Maybe.
Oh, I know. Well, yeah, I had so much fun, but fun. I was sober drunk.
Never heard of that.
I was sober drunk. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how does that play into your DJing now? Because I know you still DJ.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So now that I've gotten back into DJing, I approach it more from a conscious dance party standpoint. So a lot of the parties that I would play will be more ecstatic dance, or essentially like conscious sober dance parties. That now it's more about taking people sort of on this journey that's getting them into their bodies and sort of out of their head and into their heart space and into their bodies. And it's been a really interesting reframe for me from, DJing in clubs, where it's like, you just turn it up to 11 and you're expected to just keep it there. And no one considers things like embodiment or the nervous system and how it feels in relation to the music that's playing. And it's definitely been a shift in my sort of musical journey. And it's also been interesting too, because I feel like looking back on my DJ journey and going out and dancing for years, but dancing while intoxicated is like, that's not even dancing. That's just you're disassociative, you're numb, you're just kind of going through the motions. But now I'm reframing dancing as a way to really get into your body and like move through emotions and feelings, and more from a somatic music is medicine standpoint, rather than a just let's get drunk and sway around type of thing. So it's really sort of reshaped my DJing journey and where I'm sort of taking music now that I'm getting back into it.
That's so cool. That's amazing. And did those places and those spaces kind of just open up to you organically, or, because that's a whole different thing. Like,
I've definitely seen sort of this, a lot of spaces like this have been opening up recently, where people just want to dance, but they don't necessarily want to do it with alcohol or with other substances. And there has been a lot of spaces opening up for like ecstatic dance or just more conscious dance parties. And specifically one where I'm at that I was like, I really hope that an ecstatic dance comes here soon. And then I saw a poster for it, and I just reached out to them on Instagram, was like, guys, yes, like, thank you for doing this. I'm so excited. I would love to DJ this. And since then, these people have become some of my best friends, and I've met so many community members and other friends just through this community, and sort of expanded into other places and other communities. And it's been a really wonderful, magical journey of sort of all of these things coming together.
That's so beautiful.
That's super cool. So I asked that question because I do sort of see that too, that it's like, it's a little bit trending sobriety. You know what I mean? Like you see a lot of reels of like celebrities talking about their sobriety. And so I was looking at your Instagram and I was just stoked on one of the clips I saw, which was a reel of like, I think it was a recent DJ event that you did. And it was like a whole bunch of just beautiful people going into an altered state that, you know, again, that doesn't involve a substance. And I think, I think I need altered states. So I just really love that, you know, you're bringing it from like all these different places, from the music itself, from the dancing, the somatic aspect, and from the mediumship. And there seems to be like a cool triage that you're describing to us today. It's beautiful.
Thank you. And I think of DJing as similar to mediumship in the sense that you're reading energy. It's just in a different way. So you're reading the energy of the crowd and you're sort of anticipating what it is that they want and how their body wants to move and how they want to feel and what it is that they're open for. And then you're curating what you're playing based off of that. So I like to bring that in too, of like, I know this is still kind of like mediumship. There's still an energy component here.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. Really being in tune with your audience.
Yeah.
You know, picking up on what they're desiring in that present moment. Oh, it's just so gorgeous.
It's so gorgeous.
I can see it. Yeah.
Yeah. And like riding those waves. And I mean, because, you know, we've all been at the dance event or, you know, bar, whatever. And there's a DJ that's amazing because they can read the room. And then the one that's just like, I have to play this song because it's next on my list. And it just, and the room just falls down. It just like falls apart. And everyone kind of stands there like, now what do we do? We can't move anymore. Yeah. It's super cool.
Exactly.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. 100%. So what are you dreaming of? Like, what's next? How do you hope that this journey continues for you?
Oh man, that's a really interesting question. I really just kind of want to keep going in terms of DJing more events, like bigger events, festivals, retreats, that kind of thing. I'm still sort of figuring out what it is that I want to do or like where it is that I want to take this, because I would love to do some kind of like integrative experience of something in regards to like mediumship and spirit and like bringing that into the dance space somehow, whether that's through like meditation or connecting with spirit beforehand or like helping.
I just got a zing.
Oh my God.
Oh, Spirit's very excited. About that.
Everybody got the zing. You see my face? I was like,
wow. Yeah.
I'm gonna say yes to that.
There's the magic in there for sure.
Yeah.
What I'm feeling when you're talking about that is just so much expansion, so much potential, and so much that's new, so much that's not been experienced before that can be experienced in a new, fresh way that really gets people like you were saying, in their bodies in a way that they're not used to being in their bodies. And spirit's not in a body. It just makes me think about like, we are spirit and we get to experience being in these bodies. And we don't want to outsource that or like to not take advantage of that. We don't want to numb ourselves while we're doing that. So being present, experiencing the joy of being in these bodies through what you're providing, that's just, that's so good. It's just so good.
It's so good. You could have these spirits like just, you know, cruising the dance floor with you.
Yeah.
Oh, Bob, there goes Uncle Bob. Well, come on back in.
I think people are much more open to these experiences now as well, which you know, leaves way for so many more opportunities too.
Yeah. And I was just thinking about how historically that's one of the ways that the religions would like control people is stopping dancing, stopping music, you know, like, this makes me really old, but Footloose was a film I really loved as a kid. You're way too young for this, Amanda, or have you seen?
I've seen Footloose. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So, that is it's like almost an act of subversion in a cool way. Like it's a revolutionary act to love your body. I mean, especially as women in this society, like we're really, really told that's a terrible idea constantly. So then to love your body, be in your body, be expressing with that body, to like have that abandon without the danger of the toxic chemicals that might make you have, trouble, like every single aspect of what you're describing is just pow, pow, pow. So good.
Yeah. And I do like to relate dance to sort of movement of like liberation and joy and sort of like resistance to the forces that be, because I think right now we live in such chaotic times. There's so much going on. And I think it's an act of resistance to really reclaim that joy and like reclaim like dancing and like connecting with other people and experiencing music. And it's going to be so important moving forward as well. So I really love being able to provide that experience for people.
Oh, I just got the huge urge to reach across the screen and hug you.
I just got the urge to get on a plane and come find you, except that you said it was negative something there.
You're going to have to wait.
I'll come in the summer.
I'll come to you instead. It sounds much warmer where you are.
I think you should come here. Yes. Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, everything you said, just that. And how great to be in that wave of the people that are being called to do exactly what you're doing, and you're already out front doing it. And I think that's just, it's like you said, it's what's needed, really needed.
So for anyone listening out there, Amanda, what's your advice if they don't have that community, if they don't have those people, if anyone's going through that dark night of the soul or having these intuitive experiences that are making them feel crazy? What's your advice?
I think it would just be sort of what spirit was telling me, or my intuition was telling me, of like, just keep holding on. Like there's a reason that this is happening, and there is an other side to this. It's just a phase of the awakening process that you're going through, and you're eventually going to transition into another phase and another phase after that. But it's kind of having faith and having trust in the experience and knowing that there is a plan for you in terms of what is actually happening, and also just seeking out the people that are already a little bit further along on their journey, sort of what I was mentioning. And like these people, just the way that I met one of them was very synchronistic in that it was actually on a dating app. It was on Bumble. And I don't know if you guys have ever had the joy of using Bumble is the one where the woman has to message first. And if you don't message in a certain amount of time, like 48 hours or something, the connection expires. And so I matched with this person and the connection expired because I'm terrible with dating apps. And they had their Instagram handle in their bio. And I've never done this before. And I will probably never done it again. We'll probably never do it again. But I just felt really called to reach out to this person for some reason. I was like, if my intuition says reach out to this person, I got to reach out to this person. So I reached out to this person. He ended up being further along on his spiritual journey. He's now one of my closest friends. And he was sort of like the catalyst of me being introduced to these other people and whatnot. And I really just keep going back to that, these people exist, and there are people that have gone through what you're going through, and there are people that can sort of like help guide you through this process, because it was traumatic for me. It was kind of like experiencing this other trauma and going through it alone and not having anyone to talk to about it, while also in the bigger context of going through a global pandemic, which was also pretty traumatic. Like there was a lot going on, and there are these spaces and these people that exist to soften the blow, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that advice too, of the like, just keep going. But you were also really, coming online. So you were starting to really listen and trust. Mm-hmm. So that's part of the, like, I think the advice that I would offer too, Sarah, like the dark night of the soul is weirdly good news.
It doesn't feel like it at the time.
No, I'm a little bit in the dark right now. And it's good news because it means that something is being birthed. So, you know, you're pretty much in the birth canal and it is dark and squeezy.
That's the best way I've heard it defined.
That tunnel of light is not even visible yet. You're just like, what is happening?
And you're coming out Conehead.
Yeah. So it's great that you it's great that you're providing that inspiration, right? Like, and that and I appreciate your, you know, rigorous honesty here. Like, you're like, it was awful, you know, and yet like that little weird bumble light turns out to be like this amazing gift, but you trusted your intuition. You were like, you know, most of my friends would be like, yeah, don't stalk him on Instagram. But yeah, you did it. And that wound up being such a reward because your intuition was really loud about it. So that's beautiful.
Yeah.
I love that.
Thank you. Yeah, I've definitely made some decisions based off of my own intuition where if my friends had come to me and been like, and now I'm doing this, like, I'd be like, maybe think twice about that.
Exactly. What a terrible idea.
Yeah, that's not a good one, but it's definitely gotten to the point where, you know, you follow these pings enough and you get enough validation, enough feedback that this is actually something that is guiding you into where your soul or your spirit needs to be going, then you actually just start learning how to trust it more and more and following those pings, continuing on the journey.
Yeah, I think that is good advice. I know in my younger years when I wasn't really in touch with my intuition, I would poll everybody like, what should I do? What do you think I should do? What do you think I should do?
Yeah.
And so my intuition was out of the picture and my decisions were based on the polls.
Yeah. And I was very much the same. It's like, you know, if you're thinking about getting a new job or moving to Portland, Oregon, which I had never been to, and I didn't know a soul. And that was very much an intuitive decision before I even knew how to trust my intuition. It was very much, you know, asking other people and like, well, what do you think? And like, should I do this? And outsourcing it when really at this point in my life, I don't know how I would make decisions without my intuition and like getting quiet and like listening to myself and listening to spirit and, you know, figuring out what the way forward is. Because even now, I mean, if I knew that something wasn't right for me intuitively and I asked someone, hey, what do you think about me doing this? And they said, you should do it. I would be like, no. It's like, my intuition says go this way. So like, thanks for that, I guess.
Yeah. We do it though. We just all do it.
It's a human response, right? It's our humans like trying to check the boxes and trying to like be in control in some kind of way. So it's very understandable, but it's
there's so much trying as a little human. There's just so much trying.
Oh, this humaning. Oh, it's so cute.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, I think I'm looking at the time here, Jane, and we're at time. And I can't tell you, Amanda, how much we love talking to you. I really want to come to a DJ party, an ecstatic dance. It's on the list now.
Road trip.
Yeah, I would love that. Actually, I have a converted van that I usually live in the summertime. So I'm more than happy to make a road, maybe not to Hawaii. I don't think she'll make it that far, but I'm more than happy to make it to California. I love that. And yeah, thank you so much for having me on. This was really fun chatting with you ladies. And I'm really happy that this was my first mediumship podcast experience.
Yay! Such a pleasure. Thank you for inspiring us with your story and your honesty. And I just love meeting more sober mediums. It gives me a little thrill because I think we're a special little tribe. Sorry. Every medium is special. All of you are special. Never mind.
Everybody is. Right.
Good news. Well, we will keep following you on the Instagram. Maybe we'll see you next summer. Thanks again for coming, Amanda. Total pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Medium Curious is made possible
by Jane Morgan Editing.
Sarah Rathke made the amazing music.
You can help Medium Curious by downloading the episodes
and following our socials. And the dogs under the desk in Hawaii are Kalea and Domino.
And Trixie in California.